Just because I made another video that was a screen capture, I wonder if I can make a quick one with some thoughts about Champlain Tower South. It's been this year, 21. It's been the sort of the disaster that really makes you stop and think, wow, just came out of nowhere, didn't it? Just like Grenfell Tower in 17, and the new ferry explosion in the same year in the Wirral. It was just one of those things that you wouldn't have thought would ever happen, and it's on a scale that sort of frightens you in a way. But it's kind of not as big news over here, but it was the almost complete, but not quite, but the partial, but huge destruction of a condominium apartment building, which is like a high rise, but these apartments are made to be much more luxurious um, apartment block. So I have some sort of thoughts about it based on a video. So what's interesting is, okay, so you've got the if you look on YouTube, it's very easy to see a video that just shows the collapse. Let's see how long it takes to find one that'll show this security footage that was released showing the actual collapse. That one. That's quite easy then, okay? So yeah, you can't even, I'm on this video, you can't even see it before it starts. This building that disappears that quickly, which means that most people in in the 55 apartment blocks wouldn't even have the time to react, and some just about had time when they were in parts near to the edge of the collapsed building. So this was taken from across the street near that huge other condominium apartment block called 87 Park, and where it happened was an area that isn't exactly sort of risking it with climate change. Type in Surfside, Florida, USA into Google Maps, and a picture emerges of the sort of place it is straight away. It's right up from all the beaches in Miami. South Beach there, going up into the North Beach, and then you get to Surfside. And then if you go and put the satellite view on, this is an area they got very very low lying Biscayne Bay, and there's the Atlantic Ocean, and you're talking about like a thin strip of land that's almost as flat as when I don't know, if a steamroller was to drive across some pastry or something, because barely a few feet off the ground. But there's all these huge, tower blocks and things built, all to cash in on the ocean view, and it's kind of capitalism. So you've got, the fact that if you go into Street View, which especially we put Collins Avenue 8777 Collins Avenue, you'll see this Champlain Tower South was just another building you wouldn't think anything of, but if you had several $100,000, you could buy an apartment that had an ocean view. Is that gonna be annoying and just freeze just because I'm making a video? Let's see. Yeah, that's blocked off there. So this is the building as it stood, still in. I think this street view is 21, January 21. Definitely doesn't look like something that could possibly suffer collapse. It's an area that's hit by pretty serious hurricanes sometimes. It's got to be built to withstand that. So some of them are rented, some of them are owned. It's a bunch of residents together in a high-rise building. It's more glamorous than a council block, especially when you have a look inside. It's about minimalism. It's about the natural light coming in. It's about obviously the view. It doesn't look unsteady. It doesn't look anything out of the ordinary, does it? You've got the Street View history feature here in 2011. It's stood all this time since 1981 when it was first put together. And the only thing that kind of makes you think, oh well, it's a bit dodgy, and and it's with hindsight, of course it is just the very idea that these buildings are often built on top. Look at that, permanently closed. Well, you don't say, especially now as it's been fully demolished as well. These columns here, which are so integral to the building, so you're not just talking about the concrete damage that happened, because it's all been linked to water and concrete damage now. But what makes me feel a bit uneasy about it is when you look at them and the underground car parking thing, and the fact that these columns, which have been revealed to be so much weaker than you would have thought they would be, just stand the building up above it, don't they? The 12 stories of apartments on stilts above it. And when you actually look at it after the disaster, it just looks it looks very unsturdy. That just you can see where the join was between the parking garage and the basically the building above it. It just looks so weak and unsturdy. So if you haven't heard about it, if you're interested in this, concrete isn't exactly an ideal companion to right by the ocean with the corrosive salt air, because you have like a form of damage that happens to it, that water gets in. It starts sort of cracking it from sort of underneath or inside, and sort of bars of steel run through it. And I didn't know this really much before, and that keep it in place, that stop it from crumbling, and but the problem is that steel rebar that reinforces the concrete can get rusty if it's not coated with something like zinc or something like that, apparently. And what causes rust in coastal areas? The sea air, particularly that. But in Champlain Tower South's case, it was kind of water around the pool area, but not even the pool itself. No, because that didn't seem to have much to do with the collapse. It was actually the standing water from rain and so on, which probably would have had a salty air element to it, certainly around the coast particularly, wouldn't it? I'm no meteorologist. So what apparently happened, or it is sort of believed to have happened by quite a few people now, is that before we go into this, if you go to I don't know, you might need something like I suppose you can type this in. We need something before the disaster, of course. So where are we? Can't really. We need that one. We need to be zooming in on it. Well, that there. It's a bit small on the video. There's the building still standing. Much of what collapsed was around there. That was what collapsed. So you can't be zooming into it. That's the problem. I don't think, no. Unless you. And that's the pool deck and the swimming pool. This area has like pavers, and then the underground parking garage from the street is below it. Kind of this area. What they think happened was that there should have been a design for a runoff of water under these pavers that was sloped, but it was actually flat. And so when rainwater collected, it didn't really have anywhere to go beneath these pavers. It kind of soaked into the concrete, and over time has heavily corroded it. And it led to that situation in the early hours of the 24th of June where cracks started to appear in the parking garage. Some concrete fell into it, and it destabilised some of the columns of the building, enough that it eventually all gave way to the catastrophic collapse. that you've seen all over the news. And if you go to this video is really good because this is just someone doing a video on their cell phone when they were viewing a place inside Champlain Tower South back in July last year, right after that lockdown and pandemic. So it shows some eerie things of which I've got some thoughts about. It's an interesting way to have a view inside the place that is now just dust and rubble. These very average and plain looking corridors for a start, leading to the apartment that she was viewing, which was Unit 611, which was definitely in the collapsed part of the building now. In fact, there's an interesting story that she didn't buy the apartment, somebody else did. And that person woke up just in time by perhaps noises from the building and sensed that something wasn't right. And she went to try and close, like the sliding door. And that's, here it is inside the apartment. Here it is. Wow. I mean, it's hard to get a frame on video, but there's the sliding doors. The building had, at that point, buckled enough that they wouldn't close. Just as she's doing that, she notices on the ceiling a crack starting to snake along it. And it's about the width of 2 fingers. And something just tells her to get out. She just grabbed a few things, a phone, a wallet, and she left by the same corridor that you can see this person's video here going along to view this same unit 611. Now there's a staircase near it apparently. Can't see exactly where. It might actually be a bit further on here and round the corner. See, there's an exit sign there. She actually she apparently didn't know the building too well, and therefore didn't actually come out of the door here and just go round there when attempting to flee. She came back along here, this way. And that saved her life, because that, in the seconds that she actually only had maybe less than a minute. Had she gone that way, it had all caved in. By the time she reached back over here, I mean, it's so eerie to see this now, knowing that she came back along there, and probably down to some staircase here or something, which was still standing. I think this section possibly was part of the area now left standing. We know now that the building was later demolished by the authorities because they were worried about it being unstable with a storm coming. So there's that, and I've got a few more thoughts about that, which I'll kind of come back to in this screen capture video. But I'm just going to go on to another section of it that other YouTuber people have, engineer type people. So there you go. We get a great view of inside the apartment to really think about how that's just disappeared within 10 seconds. But now you come down to the sort of what was the foreboding scene of the crime, if you like. You see where the early signs were and where it all started. Well, I'm not going to go and do a big thing like some of these other YouTubers have about, and they're really going in on analysis of this ceiling. I'm just going to sort of briefly talk about it. If you want to go and watch some of their videos, I think I should really put a link to it because I can't remember the channel names, but there's 2 really good channels about it who have really analysed why that should have been a cause for alarm. I imagine people would have, at the time, residents down there would have just looked up and thought, oh, it's a bit rough. I would have been just the same. Even if I was buying a unit in this place, I would have been just the same. I would have just thought, that ceiling looks a bit dodgy, somebody should. But no, I definitely wouldn't have thought the building would collapse as a result of it. And it was pointed out to, the condominium board, and, we've got to do extensive repairs. It's going to cost $15 million. And all that, and and I suppose human nature, as well as the fact that when it's not like there's an authority that sort of owns the whole block and is going to do the repairs. You know, so it's not even like Grenfell where it wasn't the residents themselves deciding to do the cladding. That was all handled by the um, the Kensington and Chelsea board. That in a condominium, which you won't be as familiar with if you live in the UK, all the residents kind of at least the ones that own the units and not actually rent them, they're all kind of financially responsible together collectively for the upkeep of the building, and it's got that $15 million bill. It's gonna impact everybody. Some people are wealthy, but some people are still struggling, even if they've got a $500,000 apartments, which is what some of these were going for before it all came down almost into the Atlantic Ocean. So that looks relatively normal there. So basically, human nature means that it was recommended in 2018 these repairs, but they were only just kind of getting started in 21, but too late. They were working on the roof before this happened. But anyway, what alarms some people here is what you're supposed to be seeing is that there where I got the mouse. Nothing much, like flat and uniform, it's concrete ceiling. Above some of this is the pool deck. Not above some of this is obviously the flats, but above some of this car park is the pool deck, and that is where the trouble is supposedly began. Because I just said earlier, didn't I, about how the rain collected on these paves and below them, and it should have been slanted, and there should have been a runoff for it. But you know that water can be really heavy. You know what it's like down in the ocean when when you get compressed. Well, it puts a lot of weight on this concrete, but also, as you know, it can heavily corrode it. What it means is, especially if you watch these other people's videos, you can see a little bit of damage like that, and it's hiding a lot more damage that you can't even see, because it's rusted the steel rebar, which actually causes the concrete to crumble, and you just get a little crack on the surface. Either looking up, some of it was below what's called planters. You know how you have nice looking plants and soil. So, and they were put around the pool deck towards the edge, by the edge of the building. They hid a lot of concrete damage because the water went down from even probably people watering the plants probably as well, down into it. So it just doesn't seem like you can get away with it without really reinforcing the concrete in a way that will protect it against rust and the effects of water from. But this whole parking garage is very suspicious because there's pools of water, like little bits that wouldn't look like much, but were evidence that there's a lot of water coming down. It seems not from underneath, where it surmised it might be to do with actually ocean flooding, because it's all built on this porous limestone, this Surfside, Florida, it was reclaimed wetlands. So you're now talking that they're building these high rises on it. But it also means that the building does very, very slowly shift as well over time. So apparently, it doesn't sound like much. We're talking a few millimeters, tiny, shifting the whole building since the 90s. Might be a few centimeters by 21, and that's enough. That's enough to start causing trouble with all the concrete supports and things. They need shoring up and what have you. And it doesn't sound like much. That's what I was thinking. God, a few millimeters. Isn't everything moving by that? Because that's how many we're getting a few centimeters closer to the moon all the time for a start. So apparently, or the moon is, but that is very, very gradual. Same with the building shift that happens because it's on these reclaimed wetlands. It is slight shift. What people are alarmed about is that they're seeing these little bits of water that shouldn't be there, because after all, it's an underground parking garage. How is rain and water supposed to be getting in there? You know what I mean? And the main way that it was doing was because of this roof. The fact that the water is seeping through it, and you're seeing a little bit of water coming through there, but it means actually there's a lot more above that hasn't got through, that's causing all the corrosion. You see what I'm saying? And that's causing issues that are visible as well. A few visible cracks, but also paint flecking starting to come off. And it's a very humid environment, and don't forget it is Florida in this garage as well, which isn't exactly helping the concrete situation either. It's really humid. People said it was. So she's just shooting around with her phone in here, but it's provided people with a lot of evidence of what things were like back in July 2020. Just checking recordings. I don't want to be saying all this to nothing. I'm not, I don't think. Thank God for that. so there's that. They can see there's one section of it that really shows something that, again, I don't think would have meant a lot to people. Yeah, that's a closer one of the paint fleck in there. There's a sort of bulge feeling to this, as if there's a lot of weight it's supporting. We know that it eventually collapsed before taking the whole building with it, in roughly that area. So this shows you a lot of early warning signs. It's fascinating if you're into this sort of thing, to know what might have gone on, you know. But anyway, everyone's going to want to know that now, because we don't want to see other buildings come down. And there are this was Champlain Towers South, so there was also a Champlain Towers North and a Champlain Towers East, and there are so many of these condominium buildings which are similar, and a lot of them were built in this sort of a way, and nobody just had a clue that it was a time bomb in many cases. So, or some of the rest of them, well, there's been evacuations because they think some of them are dangerous right now. So, but what's bad about this is the whole building wasn't destroyed, but they didn't allow people to go and get some possessions back in the bit that was standing that they decided to demolish. And there is a really sort of scary part to this. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, which always shows up in everyone's YouTube video about it. So, which is that it's actually poking through with. I think he said it was like patch-up repairs there, and that's quite an obvious sort of crack. And he called it stalactites. So you want to go and see that video. And I think on instinct she didn't want to buy the place because of the parking garage, it was said. So what's interesting is it's kind of it leads into quite a plush reception area there, and lobby and all that going through there, which you can see in this area. Which to me it kind of has parallels with the Cecil Hotel in LA. That, if you remember that case with Eliza Lamb, you know, the Cecil Hotel has had a dark history in LA, and there's been some serial killers and alleged paranormal incidents, and you know, the serial killer spent his time there before doing the Black Dahlia killing. Was he a serial killer or just a killer? And it's kind of, it resonates in the same way because it has this plush entrance, which is all about the impression they want to give you about, you know, being capitalism. They want to sell you this beautiful apartment that, you know, and the lifestyle, the aspiration that radiates through here. You've got to have, it's like a sales pitch of itself. You've got to have this grand entrance, and the Cecil Hotel had the grand lobby like that, like you were going into somewhere of wonderful architecture, and just, it was just sort of beautiful. And then the sort of bare reality of how it actually operated, what the true spirit of the building was kind of in the average sort of corridors and floors above that were not as glamorous. And I kind of felt that way when I saw this video of going from this lobby here up into the corridors as she went to view Unit 611. You know, you got this, like, it's very utilitarian. So what you've seen the lobby downstairs, it's got like pictures, some grand things, and even coming off the car park, it had a nice picture on the wall, didn't it? Which, if I could just get to it. Yeah, like that. It's pretty nice. It's quite a nice feeling from a quite utilitarian car park. And you got the lobby like that as well. It's even where he's coming from now. Let's see, he's going from somewhere that's got like a nice picture, and then along here it's just like a really plain carpet, the numbers of the apartments, some pretty austere lighting, and plain walls. And it's really quite thin. It's quite thin and claustrophobic, this feeling as well down here as well. It kind of reminds me of when I had an apartment where I was close to the living room, what led straight into the front door with no sort of hall or anything. It was boom right on the front door, to like a slight landing corridor outside where the front door, their front door next door, was right there as well. It meant that you were practically living on top of them. You could hear everything when they went in and out. And originally, their living room did the same thing, and they decided to remodel it so that they had a hall instead. And but I felt claustrophobic about that, just as I do from just merely watching this video now. That it's pretty thin. It's not even a wide corridor. But also how they haven't got any pictures going down it. They haven't really humanised it or made it sort of a bit more informal. There's lots of people. It's like the street inside a building, isn't it? Inside a block of flats. So you've got the walkway, and this is a bit more like aspirational. So you're not going to get vandalism and people doing pot or whatever. Like I don't know, like the rough corridors around Grenfell Tower could have been like that, I suppose, or whatever. But yeah. But this has quite a creepy feeling. Well, it's knowing what we know, but there's something else to talk about, I think, which depends on how you think, really, in terms of whether you think it's got any significance. You're probably not going to do. So they arrive at, he's the realtor, as they call it in the States, so they arrive at Unit 611 here. And right outside, we've got this little wall outlet here, and whatever that is, and a sign. It's going to be pretty tough to get it to not be fuzzy on a freeze still. But it says that standard thing, caution, wet floor. There you go. And that to me is a bit of like psychic synchronicity, whatever you'd call it, because while it's true that the wall outlet seems to definitely be outside of 611, it feels like, that thing could have been outside any apartment, and why is it? It just so happens by chance to be outside this one, as they turn up. But also the wording, with a bit of synchronicity, is caution, wet floor, which is exactly, in a quick bit of coding, what the situation is down there in the garage. The floor of the pool deck, the caution, wet floor, and she's kind of decided. She's looking around at this place, and she's kind of decided afterwards, with a gut feeling, I'm not going ahead with it. And then we hear the story about someone who does and what happens to them in Unit 611. And it just made me think, when I saw that, I thought, the chances that she happens to visit this apartment just as that's outside, because that, even if that's where the wall outlet is and that's where you usually like to see that, that's a bit of synchronicity that's kind of psychic. And I think it, in my theory, I suppose, and some people would believe this, of course, because that that you often sort of see signs, like if you're following a car and it says 888 on the number plate, on the one in front of you, it kind of points to, some people think, and it's theory, I suppose, that according to the numerology, 888 responds is to do with the heart, and you're going to meet someone, or it's going to be about something's going to happen because in relation to what 888 stands for, or luck or something. This is kind of a theory that you kind of, these signs speak to your subconscious, if you like, and that might have been a bit of a warning to her on a subconscious level. It's not the rational brain that would have made a decision, but more it would have changed her gut feeling. Now, you can disagree with that, of course, as people would, and some people would probably agree. But the fact that happened to be there during their viewing, and it said caution, wet floor, and also, also the synchronicity was that that there was obviously a wet floor, or a reason for that being out at the time, in this July 2020, and that just happened to be when they came to view, didn't it? So I find that kind of interesting, to be honest, even though on a sort of deep, would you call it sort of paranormal, on a sort of the sort of synchronous energies. But it took her path away, I think, from buying this condo. I think it helped to do that. Not in a rational way, but I think it kind of added to a feeling of unease in a subconscious way. That caution wet floor sign. That's a theory of mine, which you may find interesting or not. And obviously, having a look around inside, I mean, there are some thoughts about how luxurious it does sort of seem, but it also, I did get the feeling, and it might be with hindsight, I got the feeling that it's sort of quite a small space and it still feels quite claustrophobic because but you can't sort of argue with how plush it is. It's very minimalism. There's no real space to really spread out and live in this place. You've got to do it in a you've got this kitchen's going right into the space that leads to the window, and we know that the door's right there leading to that thin little corridor, and this is still worth, because of the ocean view, over $500,000 at the time. There's the person who I think is quite glamorous, who's filming in the video, and they seem to like leading it right to the edge, and with the light, so you can capture the light and everything. Even the telly, they've got like a little bookcase put into the wall. Instead of a bookcase, they've got like a little hollow out in the wall. So everything's got its small, minimalist sort of space, but it's also been designed to have lots of apartments that they can sell that aren't that big, except for the penthouse that was added. They did range in size in this Champlain Towers South building, but the idea, even in luxury, even if this is aspirational to live like this in Miami, you're being crammed into a big block like in Grenfell, where if it goes wrong, it will really go wrong. Fire or collapse, Even the balcony seems tiny. You've got this little tiny thing, and of course the feeling that this is all just on some sort of slab makes it feel like it's like like a storage space almost, the whole thing. But it's quite, you can see why it's luxurious with the sofa and the TV, and there you go. You're really close to those other neighbours, even in another wing of the building. It's just there, you know what I mean? So it's like, but it's it's obviously eerie now for the reasons that we know about, but and that's what they're really selling, is that view over there. Spoiled, unfortunately, and there were resident complaints about it by the building of a bigger condo called 87 Park, and there were feelings that the construction of this was created lots of very big vibrations that may have even helped to weaken this building here in Champlain Tower. So the 87 Park and these units command even higher prices, going to like over $1 million in some cases. Just hollow outs, glass sort of spaces of hard surface and glass, which isn't really. It's what it is with this is. I'm not really talking that way just because of the collapse. It doesn't feel cozy to me. It doesn't have that cozy, down to earth nature that I would rather have. Now, I'm not talking about the fact that we know what's happened to it now. It's just that it just has that. I would have felt claustrophobic here anyway. So those are the sorts of thoughts, really. So you can just go. So you can have a look around. Now this video's got like 350,000 views because it looks around in here. Yeah, that's it. The telly. See the telly in the wall. Nothing's ever that smooth in this video, I'm afraid, because it keeps moving and panning around. You can see that they've instead of having a bookshelf, they've just kind of just put punch a little hole, a little sort of hollow thing into the wall. But she didn't go ahead anyway. And the other thing is, I don't know, maybe a lot of people lived more minimalistically, but they didn't let people come back in to collect things or attempt to get things out. They just levelled it in the sections that were still left standing, which I really would question, because it will cause mental trauma with losing sentimental things. Somebody could have gone in, even with it being risky, and got everything out except the furniture. Well, computers, they left it, if they weren't backed up, they just let them be destroyed in the demolition. So yeah, so as a summary, we kind of know that you've got to make sure that the water in these buildings isn't going out of control, and that there is somewhere for it to go, and you've got to make sure that you explore hidden damage when you see small imperfections in concrete then, because we now know how deadly it was. And you can see also, I suppose it'd be Champlain Tourist video or something like that. The only bit of video evidence of how it really started was that the pool deck caved in, and in this shot video from across the street in that typical way up they always do it, it's already started to collapse inside there, and some water started to come out, showing just how much water there was, unless it's kind of burst a pipe that might have been used as a sprinkler or something. Well, it was the most shocking event of 21, and I just wanted to share some thoughts and observations about it, really, in a simple screen cap video.